So thank you for joining this Religion Media Centre briefing, which this week is on the faith response to the Ukraine refugees. And we know that there are 3.6 million people who've left Ukraine during the war, which is now in its fifth week. And we know there were two schemes as well to bring in the refugees into the UK. One is the family scheme and the other is the sponsorship scheme, where people in the UK have been asked to open their doors and welcome refugees into their families for 6 months or so. And we know that there have been some issues with this as well over the numbers of people that have been allowed to join. And on our panel today, we have a number of people from faith communities who've been working hard on the front line to work with people from faith communities to welcome people into the UK. So I wonder if I could turn to you first, Rabbi Jonathan Romain. You've set up this new scheme called Ukrainetransport, which is something similar to Kindertransport in the war. I wonder if you could tell us something about the scheme and what led you to set it up.
Well, it started about 3.5, 4 weeks ago, when just before the war started, when it was quite clear, or I thought so anyway, that there was going to be an invasion and inevitably there would be refugees. And what happened was I actually phoned up various of the major charities to say, look, we've got a couple of spare rooms, we'd like to host somebody. And they all said, literally all of them said, no, we're not doing that yet, we're going to wait and see. Which seemed to me nuts, to be honest, because it was quite obvious it was going to happen, and it was not wait and see, it was act now and get ready. And so essentially I started up my own scheme, and I've been overwhelmed by the kindness and compassion, and that's so contrast with the cruelty over there, and people from all walks of life, people with sort of offering homes, offering their hospitality, whether it's people in big mansions or people with a flat and a spare sofa, and it's a range and diversity like that. And what's more, they're not just offering their homes, they're offering their personal care. I've had some amazing offers. For instance, there was a lady who wrote to me and said, to be honest, my husband and I, we're both in our 80s, we're getting on a bit, and he's on dialysis because his kidney's got problems. And I thought she was just going to say, so I can't help but wanted to wish you well. Instead, she said, so perhaps you'd better send a Ukrainian also with kidney problems so that I can take them both to hospital and have dialysis at the same time. Or there was a lesbian couple in Wales who said, we are LGBT, so someone in a similar situation, why don't you send them to us, because they may feel more comfortable in our sort of milieu. And lots of people also said, don't just send us a family, but we'll take any dogs and cats, because they knew that when you've lost your home, you lost your family, lost everything, then a dog, a cat can really be the one thing that loves you and licks you and is just important to you in establishing your new life.
And you said that all people from all walks of life had come forward with offers of help. Because you made the appeal, was it mainly people from Jewish communities who came forward to you?
Initially, yes, but then it very quickly went national, and people, certainly from many religious backgrounds, for whom, love your neighbor as yourself really resonated, including love your neighbor who you don't know. And that's one of the things, that these are all anonymous offers in the sense they don't know who they're going to get. But they are willing to help because they can see people in trouble and they just want to respond to that very, very practical need. It's religion at the front line.
There is a strong Jewish community, or there was, in Ukraine. And I'm just wondering if any people within the Jewish community have come to you in preference. Have you had any approaches like that?
Yes, but it's not just like that. It's, I think, to be honest, some Christian people would prefer Christians because they can go to church together. Jews would prefer Jews so they can do the special foods together. I think there's a preference for people of the same religious and cultural background because they will feel more comfortable and you will feel more comfortable. But having said that, I should emphasize that a good 50% of the respondents, and we're talking about thousands, have said, we will take whoever. We may have a preference, but if there's a need, we will take whoever. We just want to help. We're just so appalled by what's going on.
And have you found that you've had to bring on staff to deal with the sheer volume of people who've come forward?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I've not paid staff, but I brought in volunteers, and in fact, obviously, once the war started and the refugees started coming, then a lot of the big charities got in on the act too. They woke up a bit late, but okay, they woke up at last. And so, rather than try and duplicate, I'm working with them, whether it's Jewish charities or general ones, so that we're all trying to do the same thing.
Can I turn round to Dr. Krish Kandiah? Krish, I know you've been to Hungary recently, and I'd like to ask you about that as well, your experiences on the border. But can I just start with this Global Sanctuary Foundation that you started? You started that as soon as the war broke out, did you? Tell us the story.
Well, I've had the privilege of visiting Ukraine, working with people who are trying to deinstitutionalize the children's care system in Ukraine. You probably know there are 100,000 children in Ukraine in orphanages, and most of them have living parents. So it's often disability that's the reason that children are in orphanages in Ukraine. There's been a stigmatization of disability, and parents are told that their children will thrive better in an orphanage. So that was the original reason I went out there. And so when the war broke out, I was in touch with friends in Ukraine telling me what was needed and how we could be helpful. And we started Sanctuary Foundation because the Home Secretary announced on the 1st of March that the UK would have an uncapped humanitarian sponsorship program. And for me, the word uncapped was the game changer. That meant that for every sponsor we could find, one family could come to the UK. And I was a bit worried because we weren't hearing very much about the program. So I thought, what could we do to accelerate and encourage the government to really do a good job with this? So I got loads of people to sign up for a program that didn't yet exist. I got them to volunteer in advance of it opening. And when 11,000 people had signed up, that was the game changer. And suddenly we have a whole tranche of people ready to go. Government releases its program. Now 200,000 people have signed up on the government website. But sometimes governments have a lot to do, and so they don't communicate as clearly as they might like to with people that have volunteered. So we've been running online training sessions. We did one 10 days ago. 8,500 people turned up live in the online room to be trained, to meet people who have come from Ukraine and talk about their experiences, to meet hosts who've been doing this for a long time with other refugee groups like people from Syria and Eritrea, and to hear from safeguarding experts. So we've been trying to mobilize as many people as possible. I think over 30,000 people are now on our mailing list, including nearly 2,000 churches, 500 businesses, schools and universities.
Did the government call out to you as a faith community to help them, or was it the other way around? Did you have to prompt the government to say, we're here, we can help?
Well, I've been working with the government on a number of its recent resettlement schemes. So you'll know about UKHK. That's 100,000 Hong Kongers that have come to the UK in the last year alone. And the government has now commissioned us as UKHK to help with the integration and welcome. They gave us a little bit of money to make that happen. We're organising friendship festivals up and down the country. We're organising a little booklet to help Hong Kong children settle into school. So we've been working in that space. And then when the Afghans were evacuated from Kabul, they called on us to say, could you help us? We've got 3,000 people moving into 30 hotels around the UK. Could you help us with that? And so it's because we've been able to deliver and support the government in its programs before, they've come to us and asked for our assistance with this really, tragic situation in Ukraine.
With the refugees that have come over from Hong Kong and Afghanistan, perhaps this all went under the radar, but were there similar appeals to people to open their doors?
No, with the Hong Kong migration, it's different. They're not refugees, it's a resettlement. Many people are coming because they're worried about the direction of travel of the Hong Kong government, but they tend to be middle class people with lots of professional qualifications and a little bit of money. With Afghanistan, people ended up in hotels and they're still there. In fact, we launched a little thing today, me and a few of my friends, called Homes for Afghanistan, recognizing that most of the Afghans that have come to the UK are still in hotels, 11,500 people still there. And it's costing somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 million pounds a day to keep them in temporary inadequate accommodation. And we don't really expect people to open their homes to the Afghan population because the average family size is 6 children and 2 adults, and very few of us have the capacity to adequately care for them in our homes. But we have seen an outpouring of compassion and care for Afghans. We did a little appeal to help mums and children under 5. We had 33,000 items bought from an Amazon wish list to support with, new clothes and pushchairs and cots, so that there were safe things for children to use. And this weekend we had a tremendous response to a Ukrainian Mother's Day appeal, because most of the people coming from Ukraine are mothers and children, and we had 10,000 items bought off the same kind of wish list just in 3 days. So there is this openness from the British public, and particularly from faith communities, to offer help and assistance, and we don't show that with any distinction. We're going to show that to all people as they have need.
I wonder if this is the beginning of a new system of dealing with refugees in this country. I mean, you say that the reason that Afghans weren't offered open homes was because of the large number of children in the family. Was it more deep-seated than that? I mean, we've had lots of discussion about whether the refugee system is racist.
I do hope it is a cultural change. I mean, we've never seen 200,000 people step forward to be involved in refugee resettlement in anyone's living memory. The Ukrainetransport was amazing. That was 10,000 children coming in 1939. We're talking about 200,000. That's unheard of, as far as I can remember, in British history. I think, with the Afghans, there has been a real public sympathy. I haven't seen any backlash. I haven't seen the usual groups angry and trying to chase them out of the country. The Ukrainians at Home program, I think, is partly a reaction to the fact that hotels really didn't work, and we need a mass scale out and rollout that wouldn't work with hotels. And if many people could accommodate, a mother and a child quite easily into their house. So, I'm hoping this is a new moment. I don't think it's racist. I think it's more complex than that. That, again, hasn't been much backlash to 100,000 people coming from Hong Kong, and they are not white-skinned people. I think it's a mix of issues around culture and history, ethnicity. I think there is a good and bad migrant narrative out there that we need to kick into touch. But for me, I'm a glass half full person. I see a public outpouring and a faith outpouring of compassion and mercy to people in need. I want to build on that and encourage people. Well done. Some people are very critical, and they say, oh, where were you when the Afghans were here? Or where were you when the Syrians were here? Well, actually, the church has been involved, and many Jewish groups as well have been involved right from the beginning. But if it takes Ukraine to wake the wider public up to this need, I say, great, I'm glad you're awake now. Let's help everybody.
And another final question from me about the role of faith communities in the work of the government. During COVID, there was a partnership almost, and the government relied on faith communities to get the message out there, and there was a lot of communication, and all that seems to have gone a bit quiet since lockdown ended. I'm wondering whether you experienced that, whether you think the government lost interest in dealing with faith groups after COVID, and whether this has reawakened it again.
No, I don't think they've lost interest. We've been busy since the lockdown, of course, since the Hong Kongers, since the Afghans, and now the Ukrainians. So we have not seen any change in the government's attitude towards welcoming the faith community to help. I think that there's a kind of new opportunity for the government and for faith groups. Many faith groups are very critical. They sometimes complain that that we're in a more secularized state and we haven't got as much power as we used to. I say, well, the past is the past. You can't do a lot about that. But there's a new opportunity as the government realizes that the faith groups are a deployable force for good. I'll give you an example. So I got called on a Friday night by the Home Office. They said, we've got 3,000 people moving into 30 hotels tomorrow. Where are you? Is there any way you can help some of them? And I said, look, we're the church. We're in every city, every town, every village. There are churches, and they're full of people who have two main jobs in life: to love God and love their neighbor. And these Muslim refugees coming from Afghanistan, they are our neighbor. And so we're happy to help you in any way we can. And by, the next morning, 30 church leaders were on a call with the Home Office, offering to assist every single one of those hotels. And through Afghan Welcome and our partners, Welcome Churches and Baby Basics, we were able to help 2,700 children to receive all the things they need in order to set up life here in the UK. So there's a huge opportunity of kindness, compassion, and the church doing what it's called to do, loving God and loving its neighbor.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Rachel and Chris next. And they've just put in the chat box, they're in Poland, currently on the road, visiting refugee centres in Warsaw. And you're from Love Bristol originally. We can see you. Thank you for joining us in the car. Tell us what you're doing in Poland, first of all.
Basically, we initially came out to deliver some aid and just to help churches down on the Przemyśl border with Ukraine. And then over a number of days, we, with other people that were there, became apparent that actually there's no British presence in terms of explaining to people how they could get to the UK. So we all got together and basically bought a table, put a flag on it, and then set up a booth. And then began to unravel the visa process, application process. We happened to have a coder with us who wrote a database and some forms, and we started then to work up to processing people. As soon as the system went live, which was a week ago last Friday, we processed our first person. We've now processed maybe about 75 or 80, and as of now, which I think is day 11, we haven't had a single visa issue.
Part of the problem for us is that the refugees are housed in these huge kind of refugee centres. We've been visiting them in Warsaw today. They're massive, but also on the border in Przemyśl as well. And in Przemyśl, they get bussed down from the border to the refugee centre, and they're only allowed to sleep there for 18 hours, and then they get moved out again. So for most places, when it's, if it's Germany they're going to, or another European country, that's not a problem because they can just get straight on a bus and go. But for us with the UK, anyone who wants to come to the UK and we're processing their visa for them, we then have to find them accommodation for up to 2 weeks, as it's taking that long for the visas to come through. Well, we haven't had a single one approved yet, have we? And we started as soon as the process went live. So we are having to accommodate, find accommodation for 2 weeks for 75 people in a place. And that's just a minimum. We imagine it will be up to hundreds soon.
We've actually stopped processing today, but we just really need, I suppose, our aspiration for a call like this is that we need pressure on the UK government in terms of processing power, actually just driving to the passport visa processing office in Warsaw right now. So we're praying for some favour that we can work with them and try and sort out some of the problems. One of the crazy problems that we've got is that we're in Przemyśl, 80 kilometres away is a passport office in Cheshire. If you don't have a biometric visa, you have to travel to that office, which we're taking them back to the accommodation. But if you've been to that office to pick up your visa, when it's been approved, you have to travel to Warsaw and then on to the UK. So it's a tortuous route. It's embarrassing for us to be explaining to other European countries what's going on. And we just need something to happen. We're hoping that we might be able to talk to them about their security printer. Why can't they have a security printer in the other office so that these people don't have to travel effectively 4.5 hours further into the country just to get their approval?
Or equally, the other issue, the other thing is if the government doesn't relent on the duration, time it's taking for visas to be approved, then we desperately need money to put these people up in hotels or something for the 2 week period before they come to the UK. Otherwise, they slip through the cracks, or they just go to another country where they can get on a bus and be there the next day.
And there's also there's British that are coming over trying to come up with ways around it, because it's so frustrating. People think there must be another way, and people are all trying all sorts of crazy routes back into the UK. And we're obviously, again, that the government's length of time the government is taking to process is impacting and the risks that people are taking with Ukrainian refugees.
So just to check, you're from an organisation called Love Bristol, right?
Yeah.
Which is Christian based in Bristol.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why are you involved in refugees in Poland?
Well, for the same reason as Gareth, who's sitting behind us, is a guy from Yeovil, and Mike here, that we felt we had to do something. We gathered as a community a lot of supplies. We spoke to churches. What do you need? And when you come down, then you get drawn in. You meet people, you hear their stories, and you get drawn in. And actually, how can we help? And obviously, processing the visa, it's too hard really to do on their own. It's so complicated. It's in English, so that's where we ended up getting drawn into that.
So you went to the border area first of all between Poland and Ukraine, and you just met random people. Is that how you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's people everywhere. I mean, Gareth sitting behind us is from Yeovil. He's a former Marine. There's people everywhere, who've come over and are trying to help. And what we've been trying to do is fill a need that, there's plenty of food and water at the border for people and things like that. But, there is a need. There's no UK presence whatsoever officially. So we've kind of stepped up to be that, I suppose, to try and create a coordinated response, but one that holds people's hand from the beginning of them, being dropped off at the refugee centre to then, coming to the UK 2 weeks later. We don't want people to be just dropped into a black hole. We're trying to hold their hand throughout the entire process. And
why are people wanting the UK as opposed to any other country? Do they talk to you about that?
Some people have their English is good, so if to go to somewhere like Germany to have to learn a language which they don't have, to be fair, not everybody does want to come to the UK. Some people think it's too far away, some people think it's expensive, some people, because the country took so long to get into the game, think it's not even an option. But when people do want to come, the free medical care, the care, we've talking to someone today who was saying that if your child has got disabilities or has got autism, then actually the UK provision for that sort of thing is really good. And, I really believe in the UK, and I think we're a great country to come to. So it's not a problem to recommend it. It's just torture taking them through the process.
Have you spoken to any people within government? I mean, you sound as though you're with other charity workers there. Have you actually spoken to the Home Office?
Well, that's what we're hoping Chris might be able to do for us.
We've tried to. I mean, I've worked in politics for many years, so tried to get connections to people, but it doesn't seem that anyone wants to talk.
We've had the head of the Lib Dems, Davey, I think it's
Ed Davey.
He actually came down to Shemesh, was appalled at it, and is really, I think he's applying pressure. There's Darren Jones in Bristol. Someone back in Bristol, part of our church connection, has been communicating our situation from the front line to him, and he's been putting pressure on. But there's quite a resistance to change from the government, we feel.
So this place that you're driving to today, this passport office, have you been there before? Do you know how?
No, we're here. We're outside now. So.
Okay. And how many applications? You said that you've done your last application today. What are you actually going to do in the office when you get out of the car?
Well, we're going in a prayerful posture, hoping that we get on really well with the passport office in Sheshov. We've built a relationship with us. They've given us their personal numbers to try and help sort out problems. And we're really hoping that something here similar can develop. And I suppose our ultimate favour is to be based in their office so we can run the matching and work with the people, and then we hand over to them to process the visas. And we sort of do it together, because they are not interested in matching at all, but it's a fundamental aspect of the process. So if we can provide that, maybe we can work together.
They're not interested in matching.
Well, not interested. It's not part of their remit. They're the Home Office, you know.
So who will do the matching if the Home Office doesn't do it? I don't understand. It's left to you.
That's what we're providing. So we're matching people. We're phoning the host with the applicant in front of us and talking to them about the needs of the applicant, and then talking about discussing what they may or may not like and what they might want. And to be honest, that's probably one of the biggest pluses of what we've been able to do. We've had some amazing matches where people have just broken down in tears when they've understood the full reality of what they've been offered. And so it's quite moving. We had an evening the other night, we just shared stories of matching and people praying over the matches and things. It's just been amazing. So yeah,
I think I should just explain to you the matching thing, because I'm not sure people are aware back home. But in order to for the Ukrainians to even apply for a visa, they have to have already been matched to a UK host, and the government just assumes that people will find their own matches online. So people are just doing it on Facebook, in random Facebook groups and stuff. What we're doing at our UK desk is when Ukrainians come to us, before they even start the visa process, we're searching our database for, UK hosts that have all kinds of down to little details of things that we care about. So, whether they like animals, whether they want to be with children, how many rooms they've got, what they'd like to do for work. We had a lady the other day, a Ukrainian lady who was desperate to move to London with her friend. They were both in their 60s. She had been an actress in sort of Russian Hollywood back in the day. She was desperate. I said to her, do you want to work? She said, yes, I really do. And I said, what kind of work would you like to do? She said, I love props. I do props. I'm in theatre. And, and I was thinking, this is going to be really hard. But we're always praying about our matches. We found a match in London. We called them up. We told them a little bit about the two ladies. They've been these two ladies have been best friends since they were 5, and they were now in their 60s. And all they wanted was just to be together. So we told the UK host a little bit about them. And she said, my best friend works in props in the theatre in London, and I'm sure I can make something happen. And the Ukrainian lady in front of us just broke down in tears. I mean, I've got it on video, but it was a profound moment, and we've had so many moments like that. But unless somebody is actually matching people from a human perspective, sitting in front of them, we spend a lot of time with the refugees. We really get to know them. Otherwise, it's just an algorithmic kind of checkbox, yeah. And
I mean, we had a conversation with Reset the other day, and we were saying to them that the system is great, but what they need is a portal for partners who are verified to sign in. So small charities dotted all over the borders can sign in and use their matching system to introduce Ukrainians who are sitting in front of them to potential hosts, and then finish the process for them. At the moment, the Reset system is too far removed from the people that actually need to gain confidence in where they're going. So if you've been through a situation, we've walked for 2 weeks to get to the border, you've been hiding from shelling in your town, someone just saying, yes, you're heading to this city they've never heard of, they don't meet the person, it just undermines their confidence. We've seen it ourselves in the team, where people have struggled to have confidence even in us with all the details that we've got, and they're just in a very vulnerable situation.
Krish has just told me he's going to a meeting with the Home Office in a minute. What will you tell the Home Office, Krish? What will you tell the Home Office?
Well, I've been in touch with Greg and Rachel earlier in the week, and we've written them a kind of 6-page document trying to help them find solutions to these exact problems. That the civil servants are doing the best they can, but this is a rapidly changing system. But there's appetite, but things don't change as quickly as we want. But it's great to have that wisdom from the front line, as it were, to be able to feed into the system.
it strikes me as extraordinary that the government departments are so overwhelmed that they're relying on ad hoc charity arrangements and often volunteers to get their systems going. I don't know. I mean, obviously,
there's a positive spin to it, I guess, Ruth. One is that they recognise that a matching system run by the government might be slow and bureaucratic. And so, releasing civil society, small charities, big charities to be all hands on deck to help may be a wise move. We've seen how complicated the visa process is. Imagine they were also doing the matching process. So, yeah, look, I am a glass half full person. I think there is great appetite in government and in civil society. We just need to find a way to make this work.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you, Rachel and Greg. If you've got to go, but thank you very much. I'm going to bring in Jude Levermore now, who agrees with everything that you said. So, Jude, just tell us your experience. Presumably that wasn't new to you.
Unfortunately, it was not new to me at all. No, we've got people on the borders too who are really struggling with the visa issues, and we're not uncritical of the government's response to this at all. We're working with the government as much as we can. We've been in many meetings with the Department of Levelling Up, and they've been helpful. They talked to us about wanting to co-create solutions, and I think we are trying to do that. But what we're not doing is getting through the visa problems. I've got 3 Ukrainians who I've made contact with. I've made a match last Sunday. I spent 3.5 hours with them. Fortunately, having someone who spoke Russian with me, otherwise we've never been able to fill out the forms together. We've filled out the forms together, and those people still haven't heard. They're in a hostel in Hungary with their money running out, wanting to come to the UK. So the visa issues are really difficult for us. The form filling is quite complicated as well. So obviously Ukrainian is a Cyrillic language, but the forms are in English alphabets. Unless you have someone that can portal that across for you, it's really difficult for hosts or sponsors to fill out the forms. The other issue we've discovered is that if somebody wants to bring a child with them, they need the father's passport and the mother's passport uploaded onto the forms. And many, of course, of mums have taken their children and left the fathers behind in Ukraine. So when you've got people in Poland or Moldova, there are real issues there with uploading the passports, which, by the way, have to be uploaded and not as any old file, but they have to be uploaded as PDFs. So you've got to convert the file before you can upload it. So it's particularly difficult. I'm sure Krish will tell the Home Office all these things. What we are...
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you're doing, whether you've got Methodist teams on the border. Yeah,
we do have Methodists in Ukraine and Poland and Moldova and whatever. We're working particularly with our Methodist mission partner from the UK in Germany, who's working with a Catholic organisation to make links for us. At the moment, we're encouraging our Methodist people just to register with Reset, and that is mostly because we are very concerned about the safeguarding issues that random matching might engender. So we're trying to say to our folks, use Reset. We have got lots of people who are really interested, and we, like others, have run Zoom calls where we've had hundreds of people interested in how they can properly support folks when they come to this country. From our perspective, we're trying to gather people in communities. So we're trying to do it particularly in a very methodical, you'd expect that, wouldn't you, way, in that we've identified some of our bigger churches, one in Harpenden, one in Reading, for example, where we've got groups of people who are able to offer homes so that we can bring groups of Ukrainians, hopefully, who know each other already, who can begin to build communities as we get there. We know from community sponsorship programs in the past that being together in a community is what makes a difference. So when we've set up people who've registered, we've also got buddies for them. So every person that's hosted has also got someone who's going to buddy with them, so that because we recognise hosts will need support as well as the refugees if they're to do this work properly. I think the issue for us is the time it's taking, and it feels a little bit as though the UK has said it's going to open its borders, but we haven't seen the evidence for that. And that puts us in a difficult position, because we've made promises to our folk out in Europe that says we will be as open as we can be. And yet we're struggling with that.
Jonathan, yeah.
Just say there's another issue. It's not just inconvenience, but a lot of these people are now in danger if they're just hanging around. trafficking. And one of my people's already been there and seen that happen, and people offering to taking the younger women off with them, and they're never seen again. So that's a real danger that we need to be aware of.
I wonder if what solutions there are to this blockage, either of you. I don't know if you, Jude, or Jonathan, you've had personal conversations with the Home Office putting these points of view. There's a representative group of all of you, is there?
I have to say the Department of Levelling Up have been very good at gathering us together as faith leaders, but they are the ones that are doing the talking to the Home Office. I'm encouraged that Krish is able to go to the Home Office today. Hopefully he will make things more simple. The difficulty for us is you can go anywhere in Europe as a Ukrainian. One thing, I was talking to my Irish colleagues yesterday, of course you can go to the Republic of Ireland, and folks we've heard are going to the Republic of Ireland, then crossing the border into Northern Ireland, and then coming over to the UK. And of course, when they do that, they have no status, they have no access to funds, and we're campaigning on the Borders and Nationalities Bill, which again is causing issues for us. We're trying to speak into that, critically into that, whilst also supporting refugees in any way that we can.
We've heard remarkable stories, actually, of openness by the public, of the blockage in government, of the slowness of government. Well, I wonder if you and Jonathan would just like to give us some closing words of what happens next, actually. What are you appealing to the public to do next? What are you appealing to the government to do next? What's your next move?
I mean, there are lots of problems, but it's still a good news story of just the wonderful response and compassion. So we shouldn't lose sight of the compassion that's going on throughout the country. But also, I think we need a dose of realism, because taking in someone for 6 months who you don't know is quite a big ask. I mean, you know what it's like when you've got relatives for 2 or 3 days over Christmas. You're glad to see the back of them. And these are people you're supposed to love and know. So taking in a stranger is a very big ask. So I think they're going to need to have some support around them, whether it's local faith groups or others, who can sort of sometimes take the other person out, or take them to a shopping expedition, or show them other things, just so that the burden is shared. So it's a really good opportunity, actually, for, yes, there'll be a host, but other people can be part of the wider circle, the wider family.
One thing I think that we're trying to do is encouraging our folks to make contact with their local authority, because local authorities will be getting some money to do the wraparound care of people. And as Jonathan said, looking after folk in a long-term relationship. And if relationships break down, it's the local authorities that will have to pick that up. I phoned my local authority today to give them the heads up that I hopefully have got 3 Ukrainians coming, and they said, we don't really know what will happen. We haven't heard yet from the government what our responsibility will be. We think that the district council will be responsible for the buildings check, the district council will be responsible for the DBS check, and the local council will be responsible for the buildings check, but we don't know yet. So again, I think that's something else I'll be feeding back to. We've got a meeting tomorrow again with the Department of Levelling Up, so I'll be passing that information back. There are so many people out there who have goodwill, who want to do good. My anxiety is that we will lose that goodwill if we don't pick up on it. And that's a sadness to me, actually, because, we have seen, we saw it in COVID, and I don't want to see that pattern repeated again. So we have to work out ways as faith leaders to how we can galvanise that support into other things, if it's not into this, so that we can be a community that brings about transformation.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining the call. One of the most exciting I think we've ever done, with people in Poland going to the passport office. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you for joining the call, and thank you to the panelists as well. And do join us again next week for another Religion Media Centre media briefing. Thank you. Go well.